Arsenal beat Crystal Palace 3-2 to send themselves into the semi-final of the Carabao Cup, and there is one man everyone is talking about, and that is Gabriel Jesus. Now in this video we're going to go through not only his goals but how his overall play in that second half was fantastic, and why Arsenal can really use this to make their attack a lot better in the next coming games. So let's get into it. Now, like many of you, when you saw the lineup against Crystal Palace, I definitely think there was a lot of nerves in the fan base. Overall it was quite a weak team, you can say, in many places, and it seemed like Arsenal and Arteta were focused on the games at the weekend more importantly. Now, I'm not saying that the starting lineup entirely worked. I think we were quite poor yet again in the first half, but as soon as people like Odegaard and Saka came on, the team looked much better in the second half and we created a lot of chances. Now, Gabriel Jesus will get all the credit for his hat-trick, and he actually deserves it. Every single goal he scored was well taken and exactly coerced by the team, and finally we've seemed to have the Jesus that we've wanted for very long. After he got that first goal, the confidence was through the roof and I was so impressed what I was seeing. Now, first of all, I want to talk about some of the setups that actually helped Jesus get into the positions he needed. Now, I do think he was mostly isolated in the first half and struggled to get the ball, but when Odegaard came on, that changed. That was because Odegaard actually dropped deep a lot in this game and actually would bypass that Crystal Palace press, being the main passer in them sort of half spaces areas. But what was intriguing about this is when Odegaard did drop into this space, it actually moved everyone over. Marino came into that half space that Odegaard usually occupies on the right hand side. Trossard would act as that left hand side spot, while Lewis Skelly or Tierney in left back would come and be the overlap in there, being the 5 going forward. Now, the great thing about this is that it offers the opportunity to run in behind. Now, we've been saying a lot of times, you saw Thierry Henry's analysis on Arsenal, how we need more players to come in behind. Too many players are coming to the feet with the ball. And one of the biggest issues I have with Odegaard, I think a lot of other people do, is that he won't be that runner. He won't pull players away from anyone, and he is going to drift deeper and prefer to have the ball in them situations with the ball in front of him. But in this game, this is how we made it work. Odegaard would be able to do that from a deeper position. Marino can act as that stopgap in between where Saka is, giving us more options in the half space still. But more importantly, Saka could also do passes closer to the box. Now, this creates situations where Crystal Palace don't know whether to go to players or not. In the first goal that Gabriel Jesus actually scores, you see that the defender goes towards Marino, occupying that half space, because he thinks that is the only reasonable pass Odegaard can make, and it's quite predictable, other than potentially Sterling on the outer stretch. This gives Jesus the one-on-one opportunity to run in front of Chalobah, and obviously Odegaard does brilliant execution finding that gap which Marino has created and opened up for the team, and Jesus does brilliant to run in behind, which is exactly what we have needed. Now, this first goal was taken so well, where he doesn't go down for the penalty, he stays up strong with Chalobah's challenge and ends up chipping the ball brilliantly. The confidence we have seen from Jesus before, and we want to see it again. And after this, there was just so much to like about Jesus' game in particular. One of the major key points I saw in this game was when Arsenal actually wanted him to hold the ball up in the box. This is something we have used a lot, as some people run off it. It's kind of like what we used to do with Giroud with Wenger. He would be that guy in there to hold the ball up for other players. Now, there was a moment where Jesus holds the ball up in the box. We find him with a player behind him and he turns brilliantly and gets a good shot away, which ends up being a good save by Henderson. But this is what Arsenal want. It allows them to play their methodically slow attacking way, but find them acute passes in between the lines to Jesus, where with a few players around him, he has the strength and skillful nature with the flicks to actually get into positions that are good. And I think that technical ability is something Arsenal have been missing a lot, which also means Arsenal don't need to continually cross the ball in. I hate us crossing the ball in. I think in the first half we did a lot as well. Even with Havertz in the box, it's just not really enough, and sometimes it can work with the back post crosses, but which we have seen not many players in our team are actually good at them other than Saka, and this offers something different. Jesus can come close to the players and turn players within the box, allowing Arsenal to actually attack on the ground, which I think is a lot better for their team. And while Jesus can finally act as that number 9 running in behind front post into them right half spaces, but he was doing it all around the pitch, it just comes off so naturally. He is an actual striker, unlike Havertz, who has been kind of moulded there from Arteta, and the movements are a lot cleaner. When Arsenal finally get some breaks in the second goal, which we saw down the right hand side with Marino, Odegaard and Saka working close in them tight spaces with Timber there as well, it allows Saka to come inside and have that person on his outside running through. Now, usually he doesn't get this and everyone goes towards Saka, kind of stopping his shot from cutting in, but it offers two different factors here. Saka can cut in and shoot, or he can pass the ball through early, which he does to Jesus. This is a brilliant run by Jesus, yet again finding the gap between the two centre backs that has been created by us kind of having a lot of players on that right hand side, and he takes his goal brilliantly. He has all the time in the world and absolutely smashes it in, which is what you want from your striker in them positions, and he really has to score that all days of the week. And Jesus' overall play really did help Arsenal, I think, down the wings. You can see on his pass map he was coming over to the right and left hand side to try and help play the ball. It meant that Arsenal didn't have to continually cross it in like we said, but more importantly allowed Arsenal to actually create from central areas. Finally we could get other positions and players in different roles where they could get further forward, and finally Arsenal's creativity, at least in that midfield, looked so much better because you had a runner in behind at all times. Jesus was allowed and was willing to run in behind in front of the defenders, but he was also willing to hold the ball up to allow other people to run, and yet he didn't really do that a lot because yet again we're still not got a lot of runners. But finally it felt like Arsenal had an attacker that actually had a willingness to get into the box quite early on moves in the game, and I felt like that was the very key thing here. Odegaard was allowed to create from deeper and kind of catch Crystal Palace out of guard because Jesus was running in behind. And it was quite funny because every single goal that Jesus scored was also just very different. The third goal is a transitional threat. Now Arsenal finally had it. Palace are pushing up. This is what we've wanted from Arsenal, to actually exploit that space in behind. Finally we had a player that was actually on the last defender or even on the halfway line waiting for that through ball, and when Odegaard passed it through it was quite unbelievable that he had the whole half to take, and he took it so well. A brilliant finish into the corner, which is what you want from them counter-attacking opportunities. They will teams will be a lot scared to attack Arsenal and put more people going forward if we have that transitional threat in behind, and I always think Jesus is probably a better player at Havertz in that role, which is something that we have to look at. And overall Jesus' attacking stats definitely reflected that. He had 2 out of 6 dribbles, which isn't a lot, but he was still willing to actually dribble for the team, which is something that a lot of our players don't do. Other side Saka, he had 10 touches in the opposition box, 48 touches, and he had 5 shots. More importantly, he was actually finally being effective, and in that first half he barely got a touch on the ball, and then finally we figured out a way to get him in the great areas, which clearly reaped great results. He deserves a lot of credit, but I also think the team played brilliant away from him as well. Now I think the biggest questions about Gabriel Jesus' performance is that if he can continue it, what happens in the future. I also think that Arsenal have kind of proved to people that signing a number 9 would be a beneficial thing. Now I've always said I believe the left wing is more important, but I still think we need a striker. But maybe that thinking is starting to change, because in this game it kind of proved if you have a striker that is willing to run in behind, that's all Arsenal need to create from central areas. They just basically need an outlet or someone to hold the ball up and pass it to run off of, to allow people like Saka and Odegaard to have more effect on the game. But Jesus in this game does deserve a lot of credit. He hadn't scored at the Emirates Stadium for over a year. It was a year and 1 day since he scored against Brighton. To score a hat-trick in the manner he did was brilliant, and he could have got a few more goals. I think that Dean Henderson did some really good saves from his efforts as well, and the more he scored, the more he got into the game, he became more confident, which is exactly what we have been hoping for him for a while. For the immediate future, Gabriel Jesus kind of should start for Arsenal. I think we probably will see him against Crystal Palace again. Be interesting to see if we see Havertz maybe in midfield or what happens with Arteta there. But Jesus has proved that he can be very effective. Maybe with this new setup with Marino coming over, it might make him a little bit better, but I am willing to give him a go after this brilliant performance, and I think Arteta will as well. Overall, in the comments, let me know what you guys think about Gabriel Jesus' performance and who you think should start against Palace yet again at the weekend. Thank you guys for watching.